This video is part 2 in a series on Chapter 2 of Government in America, focusing on the Constitution. In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about the set of rules that the United States followed before the Constitution. So, from the time that they established independence, it kind of took them a little while to get their act together, but once that act was together, they organized themselves according to a document called the Articles of Confederation. So the Articles of Confederation were the first official rules that established how the states of the United States would work together. Now, I'm going to digress for a minute and talk about the word state, because we're used to hearing state to refer to a part of the USA. Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Texas, California, all their states. But the word state can also refer to any kind of independent political organization or independent government. So that's why you can also hear the term someone is the head of state, or there are affairs of state. And so that's not a coincidence that the word state kind of has this double meaning, because originally the 13 colonies and then states, and then all the states that came after, viewed themselves as being independent and sort of states, almost little mini nations in their own right, that had decided to get together under an umbrella government and work together on any projects that were bigger than any one state could handle. So the original states were protective of their independence. They didn't want an overall government telling them what to do. If you want an example, think about what we have today in the United Nations. The United Nations is an organization where lots of countries get together and try and set some rules and groundwork for how they're going to work together and accomplish big stuff and settle disputes. But the nations in the United Nations guard their independence. They want to be able to kind of have the final say in a lot of things. So if you think of the United States back in the 1700s, the way we think of the United Nations today, you'll kind of get a sense of where things were with the Articles of Confederation. It was designed to make the national government weak so that the independent individual state governments could be strong. Okay? Now, here's just one example of how the Articles of Confederation set up a weak national government and strong state governments. The central government, the national government, the United States of America, under the Articles of Confederation, could not collect taxes. It was the job of Pennsylvania and New York and New Jersey and Delaware and Georgia and South Carolina. It was their job to collect taxes as they saw fit. And then when the United States of America needed money for something like the United States Army, then the United States government would go and ask the states and say, hey, we need some money to handle this stuff that we're all doing. Think of it kind of like dues for a club almost. And obviously the states, if they're being asked, they could kind of put off when they were going to pay it back, or say, sorry, we don't have it right now, can you catch us next week, or, figuratively speaking. So this really put the United States of America in a weak position. It had presented itself to other countries as a sort of a strong nation. France and other countries had worked with the United States of America to help win the war against the British and sort of establish American independence that way. And part of what the United States of America had done was borrow money. so that it could buy guns and pay soldiers and all the sorts of things that were necessary to get this new government up and running. Well, that money had to be paid back. And how is the United States of America going to get money in its bank account? According to the Articles of Confederation, all they could do was go and ask Pennsylvania and New York and New Jersey for the money. And if Pennsylvania and New York and New Jersey didn't want to give it to them at that time, well, then they weren't going to give it to them. And so this was just one of the things that made the United States government in the 1780s fairly weak. And when the economy after the war was kind of going through a rough spot, it looked like some people were going to be unhappy with the government because of the way that the economy was going and what the government was and was not doing to help. And so there was a very real concern that these economic problems would lead the people, instead of rebelling against the British government, now they would rebel against the new American government or the state governments, whichever government they felt like rebelling against. So this is kind of the backdrop. The fact that the Articles of Confederation were seen by some people in the United States as being too weak for the United States to be able to do what it needed to do to be a successful, thriving nation. That's why we were going to get to working on a new document, a new set of rules that would become the Constitution that we still follow today for the most part. So we'll pick up on the writing of the Constitution itself in the next video. And in the meantime, I leave you with these questions for further thought and discussion.